China was splintered into many small states which waged incessant war against each other. Having a well-equipped army was essential to a state's survival. As in ancient Egypt of the same period, chariot warfare was the order of the day. Long-shafted weapons called pole arms were the foot soldiers' best defense against chariots and mounted troops. Pole arms could be used to unhorse cavalry and take down chariots. While Chinese spears were much like the European pikes used thousands of years later, the bronze-headed ge was a uniquely Chinese weapon.
When Chinese history entered the Bronze Age, the standard weapon was the ge. During the Eastern Chow period, the Army's standard issue weapon, much like today's rifle, was initially the ge, which then developed into the Chinese habit.
The ge was a distinctive ancient Chinese polearm. It had a right-angled blade affixed atop a bamboo or wooden pole. The upper horizontal blade of this ge is about 20 centimeters in length, and the lower vertical one was about 15 centimeters. In the age of ancient warfare, the ge and the spear were stock military equipment. With its hook shape, the ge could pull down mounted soldiers. The ge's main offensive moves were hooking and stabbing. The attack would be targeted at the enemy's heart or head. The sickle-like blade was used to hook and slash the enemy's vital parts. The optimum angle of the blade was a great discovery for armorers. According to an ancient Chinese text, if the angle between the upper and lower blades of the ge is too great, it makes it difficult to hook the enemy. If the angle is too small, it would be difficult to slash through the target. After years of refinement, the perfect design was discovered. An angle of around 100 degrees was reckoned to be the most lethal. Having spent almost half a century on the study of Chinese archaeology, Professor Yang Hong thinks there's an even better example of ancient ingenuity. In ancient China, the ge and the spear were the soldiers' standard weapons. By cleverly uniting the sickle-shaped blade of the ge with the sharp head of the spear, armorers created a formidable new weapon, a halberd the Chinese called a ji, combining the best aspects of both weapons.
It could stab and thrust, as well as hook and chop. Its effectiveness on the battlefield was like one person fighting with two weapons at the same time.
The ancient ji had one or more sickle-shaped blades for hooking and chopping, as well as a spearhead for thrusting. The ji was the stock battlefield weapon. Foot soldiers used it to pull down mounted troops. But mounted troops used the ji as well. It was effective against both other riders and against foot soldiers. The multi-purpose ji quickly became the soldier's favorite weapon. With increased horizontal cutting edges, there were more opportunities to hook, cut, and slash one's opponent. As a fusion of the spear and the ge, it could utilize the spear's thrusting attack to stab straight at the enemy. while the sickle-shaped blade could hook the limbs of enemies. The staff, and its pointed version, the spear, is the most basic kung fu weapon. Its use requires flexibility in body movements, lightness and agility in footwork, and swiftness and steadiness in turns and somersaults. Because the staff is a two-handed weapon, it teaches balance and coordination. It is for these reasons that it is the starter weapon taught to aspiring kung fu fighters. Long weapons are any weapons that are as tall or taller than the person wielding them. There is no set length for a long weapon. In fact, there is a saying in the kung fu world that 1 inch longer is 1 inch stronger. Offensively, long weapons extend the range of attack. Defensively, long weapons make it difficult for opponents to approach close enough to do damage. Polearms, such as spears and halberds, are the military versions of long weapons, but even the civilian versions could cause some serious damage. Ken Yeung from Hong Kong started learning kung fu as a child. A kung fu choreographer for 16 years, he is an expert in all kinds of exotic weaponry and killing techniques. He is wielding a long-handled saber called the Guan Dao. The heavy blade is a cross between a saber and an axe. One legendary Guan Dao weighed about 40 kilograms and was said to be able to bring down a horse. Whips are called soft weapons in Chinese, but they are anything but soft. Chinese whips are made of metal links, not leather. They have a solid weight at the end that can break bones and fracture skulls. In battle, soft weapons like whips were often used as secondary weapons. They came in handy when the main weapon, like the sword or spear, was lost. Because they bend, soft weapons could be easily hidden. In the hands of an expert, they make for a dazzling show of skill and coordination. The 9-sectioned whip is made from metal chain links that give it flexibility, while the sharp metal weight at the end packs a fearsome punch. Soft weapons are among the most difficult to use.
It's hard to master, and secondly, it can strike in a curve. When spun around, it interferes with the enemy's vision.
The whip was a favorite assassin's weapon off the battlefield. The sharp weight can strike unexpectedly at an opponent's head, even from behind. But there is a downside. Whips are notoriously difficult to use. Students of Kung Fu are more likely to do themselves an injury with a whip than when learning any other weapon.
There's a saying in Chinese martial arts that rather practice the sword or saber than the hook or whip. That's because it's easy to hurt yourself with a whip.
In the hands of a Kung Fu expert, even innocuous domestic objects like chopsticks can be lethal weapons. Because they are unexpected, they are doubly deadly.
This is actually a very common type of weapon. It relies on the user's whip power, manifest in a straight line to strike at an enemy's body.
Throwing a chopstick